Moving on to what I call today smart investing, which is my investment belief, my investment philosophy, an investment philosophy that I strongly believe will benefit most investors, if not all investors, really. There are three phases actually when it comes to smart investing. The first one is financial planning. I would argue that you don't really want to invest, not even perhaps 1 cent, unless you have actually built prior to investing an investment plan. Then the second phase is once the plan obviously is done, then comes the time to implement that plan and build your portfolio. And then the third phase is monitoring and regularly reviews of your portfolio. Let's jump into this for more details. So what is smart investing and what's its purpose? Well, it seeks to maximize the investor's probability of success, which is really the probability of achieving your goals. This approach also focuses on what is under our control. Unlike active investing, where we seek higher rate of return, it's not so much the case with smart investing, because we adopt an index approach to investing and a goal-based approach to investing. So in terms of rate of return, we simply accept what the market will generate. But we tend to focus on the things that we can actually control. So what can we control? Well, we can control the investment time horizon. I could decide to purchase my house in 2 years as opposed to 3, or delayed my purchase to 4 years as opposed to 3. I control also the risk level that I want to have embedded in my portfolio. I do control something very important. It's called tax efficiency. I'll come back to this in a moment. We also control how much fees I pay. I don't have to actually pursue the most expensive solution, so on, so on and so forth. So there are many, many parameters that we do not control, such as rate of return I mentioned. And well, the Bank of Canada actually decided to hold interest rates actually steady today, not something that as an investor I have control over, the bank does, and so on and so forth. All right, so what does that mean practically for an investor? Well, you always want to start with a financial plan. And once you have your financial plan, just like I mentioned earlier, comes the time to implement that plan. And it always maintaining a well-diversified portfolio, always maintaining an appropriate asset mix in all circumstances. The asset mix is really how much do I want to hold in stocks and how much do I want to hold in bonds. And as you get closer and closer to your goal, like let's say that I am 6 months away from retirement, maybe it would not be wise for me to maintain a super heavy exposure to the stock market because of volatility. So that is something that is important, is to slowly reduce the level of risk that you have in your portfolio as you get closer and closer to your goals. Apply asset allocation techniques. So I mentioned earlier 3 primary accounts that are commonly used in Canada, and I will, for the sake of this argument, mention only 2, the RSP and the TFSA. What you also want to achieve is maximum tax efficiency for your portfolio. So what does that mean? That means that you are worried about your after-tax return. And you remember perhaps the TFSA and the RSP have very, very distinct tax attributes. The TFSA, no taxes on investment income. So if you had the choice to place and locate your most promising assets, the one that you expect to have the highest gains, where would you put actually that investment? Well, you would probably want to put it into your TFSA because the gains would not be taxed. And so tax location is this technique that allows you to carefully choose what assets you want to actually place in what account. Very, very important aspect. Also, as part of smart investing, you want to rebalance your portfolio. So let's say that you wanted to maintain 70% of your portfolio towards the stock market, And the stock market, just like it did last year, for example, did very well. You may end up at 75 or 80% of your portfolio, a higher level of risk than perhaps what you intended to maintain initially. And that means rebalancing. That means that you have to bring the exposure back down to 70%. Monitoring is, I will never overemphasize this aspect. Monitoring your portfolio daily and track your progress. And finally, reviewing your portfolio on a regular basis, let's say at least once a year, or at the very least, if your personal circumstances were to change, or simply your objectives actually were to change, then you might want actually to revisit the portfolio to make sure that you reflect those changes into the construction of your portfolio.